Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're breaking down the reactions of public figures, both positive and negative, to the wild legal saga of the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Erik. Please note that due to this case's sensitive nature, the entries in this video are unranked, and all celebs to follow are listed in alphabetical order by last name. Javier Bardem.
They both have the absolute right, the legitimate right to have an opinion about their lives being shown on TV, on a show.
This Oscar-winning Spanish actor is a passionate vocal advocate for a plethora of social issues, so it's perhaps not shocking that he took interest in the Menendez case. In fact, Bardem himself even admitted that Ryan Murphy's Monsters miniseries, detailing the lead-up to and aftermath of the Menendez brothers' crimes, might be the only project he's ever acted in without having to first read its script.
This is a version that Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan have done based on different reactions and different ideas.
The No Country for Old Men star, who plays the brothers' allegedly abusive father Jose, lambasted the social conditions at the time of the Menendez trial. Quote, "Where a man is a man and you cannot express any emotion and you can't share your weakness, and that creates so much harm around him."
There is nothing written in stone, and the show doesn't want to say what is wrong and what is right. It just shows what happened based on the facts after a very thorough research.
Sandra Bernhardt.
Now, what else have you been doing with your time? You've been working on other projects?
Working on other projects.
Films?
Yes.
Live shows?
Live shows. A little bit of everything, watching a lot of court TV.
We should point out that in line with Javier Bardem's aforementioned comments, the 1990s were a radically different time in terms of societal attitudes towards victims of abuse, in particular, male victims of abuse.
Riveted to the Menendez Brothers trial. I can't wait for the whole thing to wrap up, because I love Leslie Abramson. Is she a kick in the pants? Right?
I don't know who that is.
Dr. Oziel.
While the truth in the case of the Menendez brothers is likely totally unknowable, the lack of empathy and even outright disdain for Lyle and Erik was palpable. The fact that the two men had killed their parents wasn't in question after their arrest.
The kid's parents heard her screaming and asked them to kill them. I mean, it was like, who would listen to this woman? She's a shrew, a harpy, a nightmare.
Yeah.
You didn't watch the trial?
I don't get a chance to watch much TV.
Oh.
So public criticism of them largely focused on their background and demeanor in court. Case in point, veteran comedian and performer Sandra Bernhardt minced no words regarding her thoughts on the Menendez brothers on one of her many late show appearances.
Oh, these two arrogant brothers are gonna fry. In their Armani suits and their fabulous hairdos, now they're a little pasty, a little nervous, biting the fingernails down to the nubs.
Pam Bozanich.
Their behavior after the murders was startling. They went shopping. Now, I love a good shopping expedition, but this was crazy.
While the name Pam Bozanich may not ring any bells to the average person, those familiar with the twisted, torrid story of the Menendez brothers are all too aware of the role Bozanich played in the brothers' ordeal in court. An LA deputy district attorney at the time of the murders, Bozanich prosecuted Lyle and Erik during their first respective trials. These ended with a hung jury, and a second trial resulted in the brothers' sentencing to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I'm telling you now, that whole defense was fabricated. And it was done artfully, but it was fabricated. And if I were an immoral person, I would have fabricated it much the same way.
The outspoken Bozanich maintained a relatively low profile in the years following the trial, but resurfaced for Netflix's 2024 Menendez Brothers documentary, in which the litigator was far from tight-lipped about her feelings.
Your beliefs are not facts. They're just beliefs. And by the way, all you TikTok people, I'm armed. We got guns all over the house, so don't mess with me.
Kathy Griffin.
I know they don't exactly have an airtight case, okay? Lyle went on a little bit of a spending spree a week after the murders, and he got a couple Rolexes and a $70,000 Porsche, but you know what? Sometimes you just have to treat yourself.
This bawdy comedian is no stranger to criticism and controversy. In fact, she was the subject of a Secret Service investigation in 2017. This occurred after she engaged in a photo shoot perceived as a threat on the life of then-President Donald Trump. As such, it may not be a total surprise to learn then that Griffin had at one point weighed in on Lyle and Erik's situation.
And there used to be a channel called Court TV, and they carried that trial live And I remember watching Lyle's testimony in particular in real time and just thinking, he's not making this up. This really sounds credible.
When the Menendez brothers unearthed footage of Griffin mocking the brothers' circumstances and post-crime spending spree, the comic took to TikTok to respond to social media criticism of her lack of tact.
I have believed them from the beginning. And as a matter of fact, I have a painting in my house. And look who the painter is.
Kim Kardashian.
And Kim saw the show and she loved it. And she became very interested in the case. And she called me and told me she loved the show and then was like, do you want to come with me? And I was like, yes.
The release of Ryan Murphy's Monsters on Netflix reignited public interest in the Menendez brothers case. As pointed out by the Menendez Brothers documentary, released just a few weeks after Monsters, public sentiment regarding Erik and Lyle has shifted significantly in recent years, with many social media users demanding their release.
They already had this trip planned to go down there that weekend to talk about this green space project that Lyle and Erik have been spearheading for a while now.
One such Menendez defender was none other than Kim Kardashian. The reality show star even met with the brothers in prison, among a group of other prisoners, bringing along Cooper Koch, who played Erik on Monsters. Kardashian wrote in an October 3, 2024 personal essay for NBC News that, quote, "We owe it to those little boys who lost their childhoods, who never had a chance to be heard, helped, or saved." Cooper Koch.
It's awful. It's absolutely horrendous. And yeah, it's just such a tragedy all around. The whole story is so tragic, and I think it still goes on.
Speaking of Erik actor Koch, the performer has been open about his belief in Lyle and Erik's story, commenting on Monsters' 5th part. Hailed for its filmmaking style consisting of a single, almost theatrical long take, Koch expressed his hope that, quote, "After that episode, people really sympathize with him and believe his story."
The first person I saw when I walked into this gymnasium was him. We made eye contact and we just gave each other a big hug, and they're very light.
Asked about Erik Menendez's slamming of the show's alleged inaccuracies, Koch gave a gracious and even-handed response, stating that, quote, "I empathize with him. I get it. I understand how difficult it would be to have the worst part of your life be televised for millions of people to see."
I told him that I believe him and I support him, and I did everything I could to portray him as authentically as possible.
This is Erik.
Yeah. I met both of them, and
both of them, okay.
yeah, and but yeah, of course I talked to Erik and I told him that.
Nathan Lane.
And Kim Kardashian just came out and was sort of made the case for some degree of clemency.
And wouldn't it be something if Kim Kardashian saved the day?
Legend of stage and screen Lane, who portrays journalist Dominic Dunn on Monsters, took a more nuanced approach to the events of the Menendez case. Speaking to People magazine shortly after the September 2024 release of Monsters on Netflix, Lane asserted that he believed Erik and Lyle's claims of abuse, but cautioned viewers against making black and white value judgments.
And there's going to be a new hearing for them, and I think there should be to look at the new evidence. And I mean, we now have a whole new lens to look at abuse that way that we didn't way back when they were tried.
Said the Tony and Emmy winner, quote, "Not everyone is going to agree with every single point of view, but that's what makes horse races." And that, quote, "Just because Dominic Dunn said at dinner parties maybe this is what happened, we shouldn't all lose our heads. That's just somebody theorizing about the case, and it's not what the show is trying to tell you."
And so yeah, who knows? The Menendez brothers could be home for Christmas.
Well, could be its own movie. That's like a Lifetime movie, I feel like.
Don't you think?
I do.
John Malkovich and the cast of Saturday Night Live Season 19.
Is it your testimony that you and your brother Erik, in fact, had nothing to do with the murder of your parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez?
That's correct.
Oscar nominee Malkovich and the SNL cast and writers' room did not personally weigh in on the Menendez scandal, but we're counting the show's 1993 parody of the protracted trial. Aired as part of that year's October 23rd episode, this now controversial sketch has not aged particularly well.
My father said Danny and Jose Jr. didn't deserve to have any official records of their existence because they were weak and not good tennis players.
This owes to its unsympathetic portrayal of the brothers and their actions in the courtroom, ostensibly intended to poke fun at the brothers' lack of tangible proof for their abuse claims. This segment joins the unenviable ranks of other contemporary media depictions of Lyle and Erik. That is to say, it's a piece of media that at one point aligned with public opinion, but now reads as insensitive and mean-spirited to victims of abuse.
The defense will be happy to produce Erik and Lyle Menendez, provided that Danny and Jose Menendez Jr. are allowed to go get them.
Ryan Murphy.
This is what I think about that show. I think Erik Menendez has spoken out about the show. I think that's interesting because I know he hasn't watched the show.
And now to hear from the man who single-handedly reinitiated the Menendez Brothers media firestorm, reviving it from the annals of history to once again a hot-button issue. Murphy, who had acted as the showrunner for the first season of Monster, returned to helm the show's Menendez-inspired second season alongside Ian Brennan.
I hope he does watch it. I think if he did watch it, he would be incredibly proud of Cooper Koch, who plays him.
After Erik Menendez panned the show and went after Murphy, the often controversial filmmaker commented that, quote, "The Menendez brothers should be sending me flowers," and that, quote, "They haven't had so much attention in 30 years, and it's gotten the attention of not only this country, but all over the world." In a later interview, Murphy speculated that due to Monsters, quote, "I think they can be out of prison by Christmas." I really believe that.
Our view and what we wanted to do was present you all the facts, and at the end of it, have you do two things. Make up your own mind about who's innocent, who's guilty, and who's the monster. And also have a conversation about something that's never talked about in our culture.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Rosie O'Donnell.
We're hesitant to hope. After being in jail and prison for 35 years and being abused for his childhood up to that point, these men don't have a lot of bandwidth.
The veteran comedian and former View co-host has, over time, played an unexpectedly significant role in advocating for Lyle and Erik Menendez. O'Donnell, in an October 4th, 2024 interview with Variety, recalled that a call from Lyle's wife resulted in her visiting the brothers in prison and developing an ongoing relationship. O'Donnell claims that she speaks to the brothers, quote, "a lot."
I want to thank the millennial culture of all these kids online who said, "We learned about this in government class. We learned about this in civics."
Upon hearing that a date had been set for the brothers' new hearing, O'Donnell commented that, quote, "I think everyone who brought attention to it should be commended, including Monsters. I'm glad that it happened. I'm not one to say it did or didn't help. I just know, in my opinion, it could have been much more accurate."
If all of those facts were known to people, they would understand what happened.
If you or someone you know is struggling, please don't hesitate to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233.